Hello everyone. This video is about how to get the text content of a WordPress blog post with the WordPress REST API. First thing, what is the WordPress REST API? It's a technology that allows you to programmatically interact with the WordPress site. And why use it? It's incredibly useful. It allows you to data scrape more easily. It allows you to programmatically interact with sites, even your own. It can massively improve your productivity, especially if you have many posts or pages to deal with. And it can significantly speed up your work. Your need: get the text content of a post. What do? Let's say that you want to get the text content of this TED article. How should you get it? Copy and paste is an option. What else? Okay, so let's just say we want the text. Okay, we paste the text in, and that's one way to get the text of the article. And that works for one blog post and maybe up to, let's say, 5, that would be okay. But let's say if you have 100 or 1,000, that method is not very efficient. In fact, it's incredibly inefficient. So this way will be able to help you to speed up your work greatly. Okay, so what does the WordPress API code look like? So first thing, by default, all WordPress installs have REST API code in the front end. And let's take a look at this article. This is from TechCrunch. If you type Control-U is how you view the source code. And there's a part in this page, it's api.w.org, and then it has this additional text. Basically, this code is for the WordPress REST API, and one of the most important things is the post ID, and this happens to be the post ID 2466432. So let's look at it more easily here. So if you look at the source code, it looks like this, and the key part is the REST API info, and also this is the post ID, and the post ID is crucial. We'll need the post ID in order to use the REST API. So the first thing you need to know in order to use the API is the article post ID. And as I mentioned, for example, in this case, the post ID would be 2466432. And it's also in a few other places. You'll see, for example, here it says post ID is that, and it'll be all over the place in an article, but I highly recommend you just go for the api.w. Let's see. Okay, let's try this again. So this is how I recommend that you find the post ID. And I'll discuss exceptions later in the video. Okay, let's do another example here. Going back to the TED example, we had the code like this. If you If you view the source code, Control U, and we do API.w, okay, so we'll see code that looks like this, and this number happens to be the post ID. So it's going to be 115342. Okay, so those are just two examples. Once you have the post ID, basically you're going to make a URL and then go to the URL. If you want to get the title, the main article text, and many other things, the API can allow you to do that. And the general form of a URL to interact with the WordPress API is as follows. So you have your domain, and then you add on /wp-json/wp/v2, that's version 2, /posts, and then you add the post ID. So for example, if you had an article here at example.com and you had the ID 300, you would do example.com and then you add this /wp-json/wp, it's a typo there, /v2/posts/300. And another example here, let's say that you had this example.com/some post, and based on what I showed you earlier, the general format is like this. And so you would end up with a URL like this, and this is what you would actually use with your browser or use with a programming language. Okay, so here's some examples of real REST APIs URLs. So if you follow the recipe I gave you earlier, if you want to get the URL to interact with the REST API for this article, for that TechCrunch article, you would go here. You can see this is just a whole bunch of text. It happens to be JSON data, and Firefox actually parses it really well. And just to show you a few parts, this shows you the published date, the modified date, the title, the text content. This is probably the most relevant for us, and lots of other information. So for example, it says 2023-1-7. So that means it was the 7th of January published, and let's verify if that's the case for TechCrunch. Is it the 7th of January? Yep, that's right. And then let's just check, is the title correct? Guide dogs will be giving the side eye. Is the title correct? Guide dogs will be giving the side eye to self-driving car tech. Okay, so that's correct. And then going back to this TED article, if you want to interact with the REST API, you would end up using this URL. And in Chrome, if you can install the extension to parse the JSON, but Firefox does it right now by default, and this is very good. And so we have the title, the text content, the date it was published, and let's just check if the title is right. Dare to discover TED in Arabic. Dare to discover TED in Arabic. Fantastic. Okay, so those were just two examples. And the REST API response JSON data. Remember I said it's JSON? So when you interact with the REST API, it'll return JSON data. And if you use Firefox, it'll parse it by default. And Chrome can do it as well, but you might need to install an extension. Okay, so how do you deal with the WordPress REST API response? So how you deal with it is up to you. but I recommend using software that can parse HTML data, such as Beautiful Soup in Python. Once you know the general format, you can code solutions that make getting the data super easy and quick. Okay, so now I'm going to show you some Python code that can do the same thing that we were doing with the browser, but much more efficiently and eventually it'll be much faster. So I wrote this Python code. You don't need to copy it. I'm going to include it in the I'll include a link to the code in this video, the description. Basically, the first thing is I have a function that you can give it any URL, and for most WordPress URLs, it is going to automatically get the post ID. You don't need to understand how this works. You can just copy and paste. So let's look at the TechCrunch article. Using the Python code that I wrote, if we have the text, I want to know what the post ID is, and then again, this is getting this with Python. So what is the post ID? According to Python, it's 2466432. Is that right? 2466432. Fantastic. So we're not going to need to go to different pages and copy the text, copy the source code. With Python, we can do this all automatically, and it will be very efficient. Okay, so let's do another example. How about let's go back to that TED article. I want to know the TED article's ID number, the post ID. In this, it says it's 115342. 115432. 115342. And yep, that's right. Fantastic. And I want to go to an article that I haven't discussed yet, a PlayStation article. So PlayStation, their blog uses WordPress. And this is just one article I randomly picked. If we look at the source code, we can see the post ID should be 374030. And if I modify this Python code to get the post ID for that, let's see if it can do it. Fantastic, 374030. And yep, that's right. Okay, so now that, by the way, this function will work probably for most WordPress themes, or at least the default ones, but I'm going to give you, I'll talk about exceptions at the end of this video. Okay, so once we have the ID, then we're going to make the URL. And I'll give you an example. Okay, so let's use this TechCrunch article as an example. And now what this is going to do is that's going to make the URL. Right, I'm going to show you make the URL that we need to use for the API. So if we're using the TechCrunch article, yeah, is that okay? Yeah, I didn't modify the above. Okay, so this is what the URL is going to be for that article. And let's just look at the title. Guide dogs will be giving the side eye. Okay, fantastic. And let's look at the text content. It says the beginning of the basically the body. The visually impaired are getting a helping hand. Okay, the visually impaired are getting a helping hand. Fantastic. Okay, so I've now shown one example of making a URL, and then let's just do another example. This time we'll use the PlayStation one. So with that PlayStation article, this is going to make the URL you need to use in order to interact with the WordPress API. Okay, so the URL should be this. Okay, so this looks correct, and I'll just put it in Firefox because it'll look nicer. Okay, and let's just check the title. The title says Introducing Project Leonardo for PlayStation 5. Is that the right title? Introducing Project Leonardo for PlayStation 5. Yes, fantastic. And you can try this URL, and I think I have another example I may in the code that you can try out. Okay, so now we have Python code that can make the URL and get the ID number. Next, what we actually want to do is actually basically copy all the text, and we're going to parse it. So these next lines basically do what I said. Basically, they'll act like a browser, like Firefox or Google Chrome. It'll go get that URL and download the code, and it'll parse all this JSON data, and that's what we're going to use. So this code, it goes to the website, and it parses the JSON data, and then what these are keys. So basically this gets the publish date, this is the title, this is the text content, and then this is the text content with no HTML tags, just the text. So let's look at the title. Okay, so the title is Introducing Project Leonardo. Okay, so that looks good. And let's look at the entry date. This should be the publish date. Entry date is the 5th of January 2023. Is that right? Oh, maybe give me just a second here. Yeah, I think, so there's various different dates. So in any case, I think that it was probably, I'm not sure why this says this. Let's look at the code. So it says the publish date was the 4th. I'm not sure why the API is giving a different number, but it doesn't matter. Let's look at the content. So says designed to remove barriers to gaming and help players with disabilities. And that's the beginning. Let's see if entry content, let's see if the beginning has that. Accessibility is an important topic to us at, okay, yeah, accessibility is an important topic to us at PlayStation. Okay, fantastic. And something that maybe is the most relevant is this part, entry text. Basically, this takes all this HTML and removes the HTML code and just has the text. So if you copy the code, this has a lot of HTML and just text. But if you want just the content with no HTML tags, you can use this. And you can see here, accessibility is an important topic to us at PlayStation. And let's see if it ends correctly. We look forward to sharing more in the future. Oh, fantastic. That is the end of the article. Okay, fantastic. And I want to show you this code just for one more example. Yeah, let's do it with the TechCrunch example. So I want to see the title, the text, the publish date, and yeah, the content with HTML and the content without HTML. So we're doing that for that TechCrunch article. Okay, so it says the entry date is the 7th of January. Let's see if that's right. Fantastic, 7th of January. So that should be when it was published. And let's use the title. Okay, so that's guide dogs will be giving the side eye. That's correct. And then let's look at the content. Okay, so this is HTML with all the text. It says here the visually impaired are getting a helping hand. The visually impaired are getting a helping hand. And now let's look at the text without HTML. The visually impaired are getting a helping hand. Fantastic. Okay, so now let's talk about caveats. So some WordPress sites are heavily modified. They have from the default WordPress themes and code. So for example, with this article, Time uses WordPress, but here, if we do API dot this stuff, we're not going to be, this code is not going to work for that. So you'll need to modify the code or basically you're going to have to problem solve. And I figured out here that this is how I found the post ID. So basically with this, the post ID would be 6245246. And let's give you an example from Microsoft. So this comes from Microsoft News. Okay, so this is some article, and if we look at the code, it's not going to match exactly for the ID number. Here the ID number, it would be 90619. So for some, basically you're just going to have to try it out. But using the WordPress REST API, you can massively improve your productivity. And again, I'll go back to these reasons why. Let's say that you want to get the text content of 100 articles. This allows you to do it programmatically, and it would be really easy. At least once the code is done, you can easily add more URLs. But if you had to manually copy and paste 100, that would be very time consuming. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this video about getting text content using of a WordPress site, of an article using the WordPress REST API. I hope you enjoyed, and see you in later videos.